Good morning.
Good morning, and we're not in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Good morning. What is today? It is November 7th, the first Sunday in November 2021. And our talk today is entitled The View from Above. So our reading this morning is, guess what, from Ernest Holmes, our founder.
I never would have thought
And
of that.
it's called Right Action. And it's from the November reading, one of the November readings of 365, his book of a thought for each day. And this one has a Bible quote starting it saying, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And that's from John 8, small print, 8:33, I think. So it says,
Just
it's very
Google it.
small, very
Just
small.
Google it.
Jesus implies that there is a truth which, known automatically, will demonstrate itself in our experience. What could the truth be other than a consciousness of our union with life? It is wonderful to contemplate this spiritual and exalted idea of truth, the truth which frees us from the tyranny of fear and the thraldom of hate. No, excuse me,
Faith.
thraldom of fate. It is neither in our stars nor in our environment that we should look to discover this pattern of truth. The truth that Jesus proclaimed would make us free lies only in the conscious communion of the soul with the source, the conscious union of each individual with God, the conscious union of the heart's desire with the source of its being. Today, I commune with the spiritual truth in everything. Today, I know that the truth makes me free from fear, doubt, or uncertainty. Today, there is a song in my heart as I gladly proclaim the truth, which is the revelation of divinity through humanity. And so it is.
Beautiful.
So we could all read that regularly because we all have fear and doubt and uncertainty in our human experience. And our title, The View from Above, really is talking about, yes, we know we have lots of problems here on the physical existence, but the view from above, if we go to a spiritual view, we kind of see the wholeness and beauty of everything and don't get stuck so much in the problems and the uncertainty. Much like when a few weeks ago, the space shuttle went up, the Elon Musk one, SpaceX, I think that is, that took
William Shatner.
William Shatner up. And he's the oldest person ever to gone up in space. He was 90 years
It's
old.
also Starship Commander.
Yeah, he's been a what do you want? He's been a Starship Commander, should have been a breeze. But he was so touched by the beauty of the earth, looking down on it at the beautiful blue marble, where you don't see any divisions, you don't see any strife, you don't see any separations, you don't see nations, one nation angry at the other nation, you don't see different skin colors, different tribes, everything is one, and it's beautiful. And that's very much what happens when we can take and give ourselves a break, frankly, and do a spiritual perspective of our situation and our problems. Even when we think of global warming and all the challenges that we have ahead of us, instead of seeing the negative, we can look for all the wonderful changes that are taking place and the people who are suddenly willing to do something about it. Even our fossil fuel, our big fossil fuel companies are now investing in alternative energy sources. They're not giving up on selling all the gas and oil they can pump, but at the same time, they know that it's time limited and they're starting to invest in cleaner energies. So there's a lot to be grateful for from that perspective.
Yeah, problems have a way of being very seductive. And that when you see a problem and you believe that you're working on the problem, it's not uncommon for you to see life through the problem and eventually to see life as a problem. And when Judith and I were talking about this morning over coffee, I was thinking, I'm reminded of the eagle. Eagles don't hunt from the ground, they hunt from the sky. And they hunt from the sky because they need to be able to survey more than the thing that they're looking for. They need to be able to see the thing they're looking for in relationship to all of the other things that are around it. And we often lose our relationship piece, that our relationship vision, when we get very caught up in a problem and solving a problem, to the point where we have people that actually believe the end justifies the means. Anything goes because I need to get to from point A to point B. And the truth is, we're not taking the bigger view or the higher view or the long view. Uh, I was also sitting out a few weeks ago trying to feed a squirrel, and I was watching the squirrel, and he was being very cautious. And I thought that's interesting because maybe he's overfed, he's not that hungry. And finally, he began to make his way over to me. And at the time, about halfway over, all of a sudden, a kestrel flew by. And kestrels eat squirrels, and flew right between myself and the tree where the squirrel was coming from. And I thought, this is interesting that the squirrel is being very cautious, but he's also still investing energy and time in getting his needs met and relating to somebody he doesn't know. And he's living with this fear, but he's not living the fear. He's doing more than that. I think we become incapacitated by the fears we have to the point where we simply go away or shut down or deny or avoid. And so this thing that lifting ourselves up higher and looking at the world is looking for the good, looking for the relationships that are alive and well, that are larger than the problems that we're wanting to solve. Because many of the problems that we're going to solve, the answer to the problem lies within the group of people or within the situation that we're looking at. And we don't often think that we have to look someplace else.
Yes, and I was listening to a program this morning. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the radio program, but it was on NPR. And
Morning edition.
no, it wasn't Morning Edition, but it was the person doing the speaking, his name was Brian Stevenson, and he has an organization in Montgomery, Alabama called something like Equal Justice for All or something like that. He was talking about an experience he had back in the civil rights movement where two women of color who have been very instrumental, done a lot in the civil rights movement. One was Mrs. Parks, Rose Parks, is her name,
Rosa Parks.
the one who rode on the bus. You know, she was just not a nobody who rode that bus. She had been in civil rights
long before she got on the bus.
planning and education, long before she got arrested on that bus. And she did that consciously. That was, I think, actually an order. But nevertheless, she and another woman very big in the movement who had great accomplishments were going to have a conversation. And Brian Stevenson wanted to go listen. And the woman who got permission for him said, "Now, you know what listening means, right?" He says, "Yes, I know. It means no talking." She says, "That's right. You listen." So he said he was just amazed. These women who had accomplished so much, and the whole time that they talked, neither one of them ever talked about the things they had accomplished. They both talked about always the things they wanted to accomplish yet. And he was so inspired by that. And finally, they looked at him and said, "Who are you, young man, and what do you do?" And he said about his organization. And they said, and what are your goals? And they said, he listed about three things. One of them was to end capital punishment. But he listed two other things. And they looked at him and said, "You're going to be very tired." And you're going to need a lot of courage. and he has been in it ever since, and he's been fighting his battles. And we really appreciate people like that because they look beyond what is. They look beyond how many times they're told, "No, we won't do that," and they still keep striving for their goals. So part of this view from above is kind of keeping your eye on the goal,
Eye on the prize.
eye on the prize. One of my first inspiring people in a cosmetic business used to always say, "Keep your eye on the peach in the tree." Keep your eye on the prize. So that's one way. Another way is if the dilemma is with relationships, and we have a few of those. We have a few relationships, and then we always have challenges with the relationships. There are a couple of things Bob and I were talking about this morning. One of the things that has amazed me is, especially with children that we think are on the wrong track, or grown children who are on the wrong track, or whatever. What has amazed me is, I remember, I think it's Mary Had a Little Lamb or something like that. Leave them alone and they'll come home wagging their tails behind them. What I've learned is, leave them alone, and you know what? They find solutions on their own, and they come around. If you tell them what you think they need to do, they rebel. They don't want to be told what to do. And so Bob and I have found that when we just leave them alone, love them, notice what they're doing, but don't criticize it, uh, they come around and they find their own source of inspiration, or their own timing to make the
Sure,
change.
because we're inviting them to be who they are in front of us and for us to see, enjoy, and support and encourage, as opposed to what you're doing doesn't agree with me, so I need to change you. And so,
Right,
and
that never
so,
works.
so much of what we do in the world without recognizing it is unconsciously an attempt to get other people to be more like us, or to do more of what we want them to do, so that we feel comfortable and we feel safe. And it isn't the people's best interest. It wasn't in the squirrel's best interest to be hunted by a hawk, nor was it in the hawk's best interest to have me feeding the squirrel. We all have to figure out how to be in relationship with each other through the good and the bad, without it necessarily benefiting us, and without us being the way we want it to be. And I think that's a challenge. I was thinking when you were talking earlier about, we tend to brag about and talk about, and we enjoy sharing our victories.
Mhm.
And that's wonderful, except we also tend to quietly talk about and endlessly recapitulate our failures. And it's a two-sided coin. And I think, without meaning to, we very often uh, don't brag about, but lament, as opposed to saying this happened, either good or bad, and move on and move forward and do what we need to do. We get stuck in our good and we get stuck in our bad.
Mm.
But I'm also thinking that getting stuck in our good is as big a trap as getting stuck in our bad.
Yes, those, especially those poor me's, or why was that done to me? And often what we need to do, it's, people talk a lot about forgiving, but forgiving is really just unburdening yourself of the burden of blaming. Uh, you just let that go. And sometimes that's done with a reframing. Um, where I've been in situations, I've seen lots of people be in situations where they were being the victim, and blaming the other person. If they just hadn't done that, this would be different. And with a reframing, somehow you can shift that to see your part in it, and to see that,
I don't know that everybody knows what you mean when you say reframing.
oh, that's true. Well, you're looking at the same situation, but you put a different frame around it, and somehow it looks totally different. In other words, you put a different meaning on it, or a different interpretation of the event. So one interpretation might be, gee, I thought that was against me, it turned out to be for me,
Mhm.
because it strengthened me. What are some other reframes? I'm blaming you, and then I look at it and I see, no, actually I had a big part in that. What was my part? So now I can't blame you.
Yeah. Looking at a thing from different angles, and we don't often recognize that we're looking at a thing from any angle,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
changing the perspective, and but also imagining, for instance, that we're in a story that has a happy ending rather than one that has an unhappy ending. Many of us are living a lot of our lives in a spiritual way. At the same time, our spiritual life is really dedicated to helping us not have the worst happen that we think is going to happen. And in essence, what we do, we have our spirituality as a kind of buffer or a shield, as opposed to an avenue into possibility, into the greater us. And so if you find yourself rallying others to pray for you and to help you and to support you, as a defense against instead of finding your own spirituality, your own good. And it doesn't mean people can't pray for you, but it isn't a shield. Prayer isn't a shield. The source of creation isn't a shield to protect you. It's something within you that you can cultivate and utilize for your own best and highest interest. And I think we lose track of that. And, we have, it's easy for us to become victims of not enough God,
Mhm.
as opposed to, wait a second, if God is everywhere present in me and everywhere, I don't have to go looking for God. I don't have to ask somebody else, would you please try to find God for me because I'm having a hard time? No, you can find God and you can say, would you please sing with me and let's enjoy together that God is in me and in you and in everyone else. And I think it's particularly important right now because we tend to do an awful lot more out of desperation and out of inspiration. And that desperation doesn't get us the same result as inspiration.
No, and so even when you have no idea what the answer is, keep waiting to be surprised. Keep waiting. It's not that you don't have to move your feet. We often say, you know, treat and move your feet, or pray and still work towards your goal.
Yeah, pray forward.
Pray forward. But I want to get back to this reframing thing because it goes
Yeah.
back to this a view from above. Because you can look at the problem where you're a victim, and then if you go a little higher and look at it spiritually, for example, we believe we choose our parents. And sometimes, we want, why would I have chosen those parents that did this to me or that to me? Well, go a little higher. There may be a reason that you can make sense of that even the challenges turn out to be for you rather than against you. For example, one of the things Brian Stevenson said that I loved, he said, it is only the broken among us who can teach us anything. I want to share that again. And Bob and I certainly have had our challenges in life where we've been broken a few times.
Yeah,
And most therapists have. That's why they go into
we
it.
spent a lot of time carrying around a lot of glue.
Yeah. And so if you think about it that way, then even in your broken places, it doesn't have to mean you're broken forever. It means that you can um, take the challenge and overcome it, and in doing so, help other people with the same challenges.
It's interesting you would bring up reframing. We hadn't talked about it earlier, but as one of the students that came to me yesterday, and she said, I'm getting ready to do a presentation on reframing. And she walked me through the steps and what she was going to present. And I said, I think there's a missing step. And she said, well, what's the first step is to recognize the story. And the second is to look at it from a positive perspective. And I said, actually not. The first is to see the problem. The second is to praise the individual's courage, strength, and power to have endured and to have survived and to have actually managed that, and to recognize how strongly, powerfully they are moved or feel about this. And then the third step is, what is it? Is there any other way we could look at this that would have you see it differently? And so if you think about this in your own life, when you get stuck, very often we're stuck in a point of view and we think we need to jump to the positive. And actually what we need to do is to recognize this is really heavy stuff, or this is really difficult. And that recognition of what is doesn't mean we have to be stuck there, but we can't pass over it to something, let's just all be happy. No, and it doesn't work that way. So the other thing I'm suggesting is that we take time with ourselves, that we have patience with ourselves, that we say, I can see why I'm not seeing it from another perspective because I'm in a lot of pain right now. And I'm willing to recognize the pain, and I'm willing now to look forward and see how else could I see this, the situation, the circumstance, and how could I invite spirit into this condition or situation? How could I invite the more of me into the situation to help me see it and work with it and deal with it in the most powerful way possible?
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm listening to a book on Audible right now, written by a medical doctor, and it's called When the Body Says No. And it's really quite good, especially considering it's written by an MD and is Canadian. And he goes into the histories of people who come down with various diseases, and he links it all back to when they were unable to say no to a situation that was detrimental to them, whether that was, you know, uh, various things, taking care of other people, not able to say no to too much work, too much caregiving, too much, and not able to say no to protect themselves and to do what was right for them. but it's amazing the number of ways. Then and what he stresses over and over and over again is immediately jumping to positive without acknowledging the feelings involved and the pain of it. He said most of them wouldn't even admit they had challenges in their families or in their histories because they jump immediately to the positive.
And the message is, it's not okay to feel bad. It's not okay to be upset. It's not okay to be overwhelmed. And it's got to be okay to be where you are, because that is the only place where you can begin to exercise the power that you have. And so admitting to or acknowledging what you're experiencing doesn't mean that you're investing in more of that. It means you're looking at the ground, you're standing down and saying, it's rocky, it's tough, my feet hurt, and now what can I do? And so that helps us not have this kind of Pollyanna answer. This is amazing. Every time you cough, you disappear. I've never seen that before.
Good.
That's quite a gift.
I don't know who that is doing that coughing.
There you go. Our relationship has been like that. It's very intimate. It's very wonderful. And then boom, she's not there anymore. I don't know what happens. Was it something I said?
Oh, so I had some wonderful quotes
Yeah.
with this, but I think I'm going to put them on Facebook where we post this because
We can't read them all.
no, but Ernest Holmes says it's only when we view life from the standpoint of an expanding soul destined forever to exist somewhere that we can make either sense or sanity out of human experience. That's another thing that helps you reframe situations, to remember the eternality of each soul involved in the situation. So I've got some wonderful quotes I'll put online, but I think now it's time for us to wind up.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yes. So shall we close with a prayer?
We're going to close with a prayer, and then we're going to have some music, and
Oh, yes.
and we're going to great piece of music this week.
So let's close with a prayer. Let's know right here, right now, that each of us is living an eternal existence, that we are in these human bodies just for a short while, but we are an eternal soul, ever and ever evolving. We know we are one with our source, with our God, with our creator, and with all of creation, with all of each other. So even those who are willing to play the part of the villains in our plays and our movies, we know are also God in expression and are agreeing to play that part for us, not against us. So we choose to take that view from above. We choose to take a higher view of what's going on, step out of our ego limited self and remember the eternal soul that we are, and know that this is a long game, not a short game. And the truth is, all is well. All is well. No matter how we might want to judge of what we call painful experiences, we know that that too is good. It is all good. It is all God. And for this we give thanks, and together we say,
And so it is.
so it is. And so now I'm going to share the screen.
No, we're going to
No, we're going to stop recording. Yes, thank you.